Hello, BookTube. Well, it's a bleak and barren Sunday when there are no mail trucks on the road, no visits from the postman, no books for Steve. So I'm consoling myself with a tag, as I usually do, and this one is the Days of the Week tag, which was created by J.D. Archer at his channel, and I was tagged by Ben Sanders. I'll try to remember to leave a link to both of them down below. It's associations based around the days of the week. I've been seeing a bunch of people doing it, and I'm going to attempt it myself to alleviate my depression. Starting with Monday, which of course comes from the moon, and that brought to mind Moon Shadow, an old graphic novel written by J.M. DeMatteis and drawn by John Muth. That's among many other things about a metaphorical relationship between a boy and the moon. I loved it, and I think it's probably long gone. But those of you who like non-superhero graphic novels, you should check it out. There's a lot in it. It's quite lovely. Question number 2 is Tuesday, which, despite some of the things I've heard going around BookTube, was named after the Norse god of war, Tyr. And that brought to mind war and all the books I've read on war and military history. The one I want to recommend is something I've recommended on this channel before, and it's a little odd to me that I would recommend it, because it's not an author I particularly like. It's Sebastian Junger, and it's his book called War, which is really, really memorable. Brutal, but memorable. I wholeheartedly recommend it. Then there's Wednesday, which is Hump Day, the middle of the week, the day when those of us who are just poor, nameless, faceless wage slaves finally can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And for this, I wanted a pick-me-up book, and the one that comes to mind is something I've also mentioned on this channel a few times: The Diary of Samuel Pepys, in which our boob of an author just records what he does day by day, and it cannot fail to put a smile on your face, even when Pepys is upset. In fact, sometimes mostly when he's upset, you just can't help smiling. It's so much fun. Then there's Thursday, which is named after Thor, the Norse god of thunder, and that brought to mind not only the Elder Edda, the great Norse myth poem that I will get to in detail here on this channel, but it also brought to mind something else that I wanted to show you. Something that's not quite so elevated, but that I just love, and I want to recommend it, and it's this. It's Marvel Masterworks number 10 for Thor. This is it's a collection of their old issues. I have the issues myself in a box here in this room, but then they wouldn't stand looking at the camera. It's by Jerry Conway, and it's drawn by the great John Buscema, and it's the story of Thor's near omnipotent father, Odin, and a seemingly equally omnipotent character called Infinity, and the epic struggle that takes place between with Thor in the middle, and it's so good. I was so happy to get a hardcover volume because I have read my original issues almost to powder. But when mentioning Thor, I couldn't not mention it. I love it so much. One of the great epic Thor storylines. Then there's Friday, which is the end of the week. It's relief for all of us trudging wage slaves and office drones. And when thinking about relief, there are a small handful of books that I go to right away that just promise that kind of relief. Actually, Pepys is one of them. And I've mentioned on this channel P.G. Wodehouse many times, who definitely fulfills that function. But one I wanted to mention today is the Map and Lucia books by E.F. Benson. I'll try to remember to mention it down below so that you can go and find it. There's a series of short comic novels about a woman named Lucia who runs imperiously her little English village, and about Miss Map, who's a constant rival to her unbrooked authority. And Benson just loads it with snappy, sarcastic humor. All the books are wonderful, and they were made into a big anthology called Make Way for Lucia that I'm sure you can find. And if you can't, and you want it, I'll find a copy for you. I see it all the time. But it's impossible not to feel relief dipping into the world that Benson made. And then we've got Saturday, which is when teenagers party. This I know firsthand. And unfortunately, the book that first comes to mind when I think about that is something I mentioned on this channel before, always with a twinge of shame. And that's I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell by Tucker Max, which is disreputable and disgusting and insulting and belittling and soiling and also absolutely hilarious. So you won't ever tell anybody that you read it, much less that you liked it, but I still do recommend it. And that brings us to Sunday. What books are recommended by Sunday? What comes to mind for Sunday? Bleak House? Maybe? The End of Romeo and Juliet? Perhaps? What about a novel about a little boy who's stricken with an incredibly rare and painful disease, goes to the hospital, undergoes one fruitless treatment after another, each one making him cry just a little bit more. And then he undergoes a miraculous recovery. And when he's walking away from the hospital, he's crushed under the wheels of a gigantic truck, whose wheels, greased with the skids of his guts, lose control, and the truck barrels forward into a pet shop. And in the window of the pet shop, on the sawdust, there's a collection of little kittens. And they all see this enormous truck barreling towards them at 70 miles an hour, and they all go, meow. And then they get wiped out. And when the truck comes to a stop at the rear wall of the pet shop, it bursts into flames. How's that for Sunday? They should have started with Sunday. So that's it for the days of the week tag. Sunday's perhaps not the day to do this tag. I tag A Scientist Reads. I tag Reading with Pugs. I tag Today in Jen's Library. I tag Jer Sings and Reads. Haven't heard from him in too long. I tag the young ladies at the restricted section. I want to hear about your week. I want to hear what your days suggest to you. And I'll see you soon, Book 2. Thank you.